If I had to summarise my approach towards photography, it would be lazy. I've always valued camera gear that is light and compact over raw performance. And being a video guy, that's sort of fitted in pretty well. Starting off with APS-C gear and then moving on to micro four thirds. And that was until I came to astrophotography, which is basically one of the most demanding genres of photography. I'm holding here my GX85, which has an Olympus 17mm f1.8 lens. It's been a really great camera. It's tiny, it's in at about 560 grams with battery and SD card. It's 17mm on a micro four thirds with the 2x crop is the rough equivalent of field of view of a 35mm lens on a full frame. So look, there's been quite a few good options on the Sony E-Mount for a while, but they have been horrendously big. Anything from around 700 grams for something like a Samyang 1.4, right up to over a kilo. I think even 1.1 kilos for the Sigma f1.2. And they are huge. They are stupidly big. The lenses themselves weigh more than my entire micro four thirds outfit. And just recently though, Samyang have made an addition to their tiny prime lineup. This thing is seriously small. So this is currently here mounted on an A7R. And that is my GX85. Like, you won't be able to see it very well. I'll put some additional footage in, but it is marginal, the difference between this full frame Sony camera and this micro four thirds. So all of a sudden I'm back in where I'm comfortable with camera gear. It's small, compact, and this setup with the A7R comes in at just over 700 grams. For camera, lens, battery, SD card, which previously had been, as I was saying, the entire weight of just the lens of those available. So the question remains for myself. I'm going to have a little bit of a closer look at it tonight. This is my first night out with it since I picked it up. I'm going to see how good it is for stars, because it might be sharp in the center, and the reviews of it are it is very sharp. However, how sharp is it corner to corner, and how sharp is it wide open? So just before we jump over to the images, I just wanted to go over some of the top reasons why I selected this lens. Size and weight are absolutely at the top of my list here, however, also looking for good video autofocus as well as ultimately budget. The new Sony 35mm f1.4 G Master is absolutely going to be the better pure astrophotography lens, but at twice the weight and 4 times the price, it is really not in the picture for me here. Okay, let's load up these images and take a look. So here I have one of the images loaded up from the night, and probably one of the first things you're going to notice is the lighting isn't what it was, and that's actually because I had a bit of a muck up. In the battery in one of my lights failed on me completely, and I did not have any replacement batteries, so I had to make do with my 2 remaining lights, which meant I couldn't put lighting around the building as I had intended. Never mind, we're looking at the way this lens renders the stars in this video, so we'll take a closer look at that. So looking at the settings I used to take this image here, you can see the lens was wide open at f1.8, and I used the MPF rule to calculate exposure, which came out at 5.7 seconds, and I just rounded that up to 6 seconds to ensure I didn't get any sort of star trailing on the stars while I was trying to have a look at how they render. ISO, I can see I'm using 3200 here, which is probably a little bit less than what I was really looking for. However, it's what I got. And finally, obviously, the 35mm focal length, which is what we have with the lens. So first, zooming in on the center, we'll take a bit of a look, and immediately you might see a little bit of chromatic aberration or purple fringing around one of the stars there, but not the others, which is a bit interesting. Perhaps just a hint of spherical aberration, which is sort of like a glowy halo effect around stars, but certainly nothing I would render as distracting to the image. Now, most stars, and you'll probably see it a little bit here, you can see a little bit of chromatic aberration up in the corners, but most lenses, expensive or cheap, will suffer into the corners with aberrations such as chromatic aberration and astigmatism. Often these defects can be lessened by stopping down your lens, however not a desirable thing to do for untracked astro as it lets in less light. Looking at the tail end of the Milky Way here, there should be plenty of stars to zoom in on and get a good view of. So we'll zoom into 200% again, lock in here, and immediately we can see some really good examples of chromatic aberration. So the purple fringing around the stars again. But this can actually be cleaned up in most image editors pretty easily. However, as you can see here, it still leaves an artifact behind, but it is a lot cleaner to look at and less distracting. Many lenses suffer from this particular aberration. However, it's one I don't consider a deal breaker due to it being tidied up in post generally quite easily. And you can see here that the difference between having it turned on and off is quite stark. The other aberrations we can see pretty clearly here are astigmatism and chromatic aberrations. So astigmatism is the spread of light along an axis that rotates around the center of the image, sort of giving the stars a little bit of a winged look, and also the chromatic aberration, which gives the stars a sort of comet-like tail coming out. And these aberrations, unfortunately, cannot be corrected in post, although, as I said, in some lenses can be mitigated by stopping down some, keeping in mind, of course, that by stopping down your lens, you're going to be letting in less light, which is generally undesirable for untracked astrophotography, as you really can only expose your image for so long before trailing of the stars becomes an issue. However, zooming back out again to normal viewing, I think the rendering of the stars here are quite good, not perfect. However, I think for social media, small prints, without anything too arduous, I think it's doing really well and represents really good value for money. So what's my verdict on this Samyang 35mm Tiny Pro? Well, it's certainly not the best performer out there. The Sony 35mm G Master would absolutely blow this thing away. However, for those looking for a balance between performance, budget, and having something light and compact in the bag, it's well worth considering, and I think it has a lot to offer. At the end of the day, I've seen far worse performing lenses costing a lot more than this one. Those looking to do large-scale prints may want to look elsewhere, but for the casual user, I think the results speak well enough for themselves. Perhaps even more so if you manage to get your foreground lighting right.